Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Podcast Accelerator, the thrice-weekly show that brings you podcast education, industry insights, and straight talking reactions to podcasting news. I am your host, Mark Asquith, that British podcast guy and CEO and co-founder here at Rebel Base Media, the podcast tech company that creates the Podcast Success Academy, podcast websites, Productivity, Rebel Base Studios, and Captivate.fm, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host, where you can get your first month of podcast hosting for just $1 and where you can transfer in an existing podcast completely for free. So please go ahead and check it out now at Captivate.fm. Now, today on the show, is your social presence costing you podcast listeners? Is your social presence costing you podcast listeners? Well, let's dive in a second. Let's go deep into that. Well, as deep as we can in 10 minutes, but I think we'll be able to get something done. Don't you worry about it. But before I dive into that one, I just want to give you a cheeky little heads up that it's not all about your social presence. In fact, building listenership that is loyal, building friends, building relationships, you know what? It comes down to frequency and quality of contact. And in order to do that, I believe that every podcaster should have a high-quality email strategy. Now, I work with AWeber, a wonderful email service provider who have been doing this for 20 years. They've helped 100,000 businesses. They've helped me for 5 years to grow my business, and ultimately, they are the best at what they do. So, relationships are vital. Building friendships is vital in podcasting because, look, it's a one-to-one medium. I'm talking to you, not to everyone. I'm talking to you. And to build that relationship up with you, I need to talk to you. I need to get to know you, and you need to get to know me. So please, if you're not doing the very same thing with your listeners, I urge you in the strongest sense to check out AWeber for 90 days, totally free at markasquith.com/AWeber. Right, social media is vital to any modern marketing plan, but so many podcasters get the basics wrong, and in particular, they think of their social profiles in isolation from their wider brand and marketing, and that is not good. And let me explain what I mean by this. If you think about the usual flow of social media, we put out tweets, we put out Instagram posts, and I am going to focus a little bit on Twitter and Instagram a little bit more than any of the others right now. But if we use those two in context, we put posts out all the time promoting stuff. But everything on Twitter, everything on Instagram is so transient. It's I think the lifespan of a tweet even 3-4 years ago was like 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, it's gone from people's streams because there's that much information that is being published. So, you're not going to generate that much traffic through a tweet. But in particular, what you can do with social media is generate conversation. You can generate relationships, just like I mentioned with email. You can generate relationships. And the beautiful thing about that is that the people that you're relating with, the friends that you are making, they will do one thing without fail. They will check out your social profile. So you interact with someone for the first time, and they will check out your profile more often than not. Instagram, someone sees what you're doing, they like what you're doing, they will check out your profile. So why, as podcasters, don't we think of ourselves as brands, as companies, as media production houses? Because ultimately that's what we are. And as a brand, and as a company or a media production house, our profiles wouldn't be barren. They wouldn't be dead. No, they wouldn't. Excuse me. They would actually be full of really useful information. They would be very bold and brassy. They would say exactly what we did in our profile header. They would give people next steps that were tangible. And that's what we have to do as podcasters. So if you look at my profile, look at my Twitter profile, my header says, there's a picture of me and it says, that British podcast guy. Unequivocally, it says, if you want to talk about podcasting, I am your man. And the pinned tweet that is at the top, it's a media image. So it's an image, it's a media embed. And it's a link to something that I want people to take action on. In particular, it's a meetup. Now, I will actually change this. I will embed. I'm actually going to do this very, very quickly over the next week or so. I'll take the embeddable player from Captivate.fm, our podcast hosting, analytics and marketing platform, and I'll embed the trailer for the Podcast Accelerator, this show, into a tweet, and that will be pinned at the top of my profile. Because I want people to listen. So when people look at my profile, if I can give them a 90-second taster and then make it easy for them to subscribe, their life is made easier. My life is made easier, and the clear call to action is there. Similar thing occurs on Instagram. If you look at my Instagram, at Mr. Asquith on Instagram, it's very, very clear what I do, that British podcast guy. But Instagram now gives the ability to compartmentalize and categorize stories that are around forever. So you get the ability to highlight certain stories. So I've taken all of my podcast stories where I showcase each one of my shows. And guess what? There's a highlight that says, here are all my podcasts. There's a highlight that replays some of the key points from my TEDx talk, and that is on its own highlight. Think of it as a web page. I've got a TEDx web page. I've got a My Podcast web page on Instagram. I've also got my events, podcast events. I've got podcast courses, both things that we run via Rebel-based media. So I've created this profile that allows people to very quickly and easily undertake a very simple next step. So let me ask you, what are you asking people to do via your social profiles? Why would you generate relationships and traffic to your profile and then dead-end people? Ask yourself that question. So think, if someone hits my social profile, what is the next step that I want them to take? And then you need to tailor the calls to action for each platform, Twitter and Instagram in particular for this episode. Tailor the Instagram story highlights that are there forever, the Twitter pin tweet, the bio. Make them unique, make them very obvious when it comes to, right, okay, you've now come to my profile, you obviously want more from me, or you want to just find out a little bit about me. Well, here is the best next step. Don't dead end people with your social media profiles, all right? You're a brand, you're a media production house, you are a podcasting force, all right? So give people the next step. Work on the brand of you. And thank you so much for joining me here on the Podcast Accelerator. It's a real pleasure. I love doing this with you. And please, if you know any podcast that would benefit from this, please remember to tell your podcasting friends that the show is available to listen to for free in any app that supports podcasts. And if you're wondering what the best next step to take for your own podcast is, whether you're a new or a veteran podcaster, go ahead and take our short 5-minute survey where I'm going to help you to diagnose and solve the main issue holding your show back. But not only that, I'm not only just going to give you access to the answer to that question, but I'm going to give you access to our free Vibrant Podcast Rebellion Facebook community, our weekly free group coaching from me and the team, and actionable insider-only emails, plus a free invitation to the Podcast Success Academy. I'm going to give you all that stuff. So please go ahead and invest 5 minutes now to grow over at rebelbasedmedia.io/grow. And until the next time, thank you again, and never forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel.